Shalom, everybody. This is Jahdiel from the Fourth Angels Learning Center. I am also the elder of the Assembly of Yahuwah online, one of the elders, one of the three elders, I would say, my brothers. And today we're going to do another debunk session, and it's on this doctrine called the God doesn't kill doctrine. I'm not sure what's the name of this doctrine, but it's been around for a while. So again, from the top, we're looking at the question, why does Yah destroy? And I posed the question how it should be answered. I should be answering, how does he destroy? Part one, we showed how hatred is the motive of breaking the sixth commandment, which is thou shalt not murder or kill. The motive and the intent is what makes you break the commands. Based off of how you keep the commands from your heart, so you also break it from the heart. We showed examples on how the motive of hatred could determine whether something was murder or whether something was innocent, even if someone is killed in the situation. So killing in itself does not indicate evil or murder. Now, we're looking at the second aspect of destruction for sin. The second aspect of why people were destroyed for sin, or why sin is destroyed, and the people who work those sins are destroyed as well. Pay attention to this one. This is principle number 2, preservation. This is another motive behind the destruction that occurs from Yah. Preservation. This principle, in many instances in Scripture, is also in everyday life as well. This principle, there's so many examples in the scriptures as well as in the world. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to point out certain verses that emphasize on preservation. Matthew chapter 5. We're looking at Matthew chapter 5, verse 29 and 30. Matthew chapter 5, verse 29 and 30. It says, "And if your right eye offend you, pluck it out and cast it from you. Because it is profitable for you that one of your members or body parts should perish, and not that your whole body should be cast into hell." Verse 30, "And if your right hand offend you, cut it off and cast it from you. Because it is profitable for you that one of your body parts should perish, and not the whole body be cast into hell." So we have to understand, what does the body represent? In essence, in Scripture, what do we use the emphasis on body for? We use it as the body of Messiah, Messiah's actual body. We say that we are the body of Messiah. Scripture actually says that we are his body. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14, it says, "For the body is not one member, but many, and Messiah is the head." So this chapter teaches that Messiah is the head. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 27 says, "Now you are the body of Messiah, and members in particular." So we have to understand that this is the principle. If he's telling us this principle for us to utilize, not in a literal sense, but in a spiritual sense, in a practical sense. If our eyes is offending us, that means if we are putting our eyes on the wrong thing. What is he saying? To pluck your eyes out? Absolutely not. He's telling you to be drastic. Remove yourself from where your eyes can be, from where the opportunity of your eyes going where it should not be will be. If you have an issue with that, with controlling your eyes, where your eyes look, who your eyes are looking at. You don't go to a crowded beach where there's naked women if you have an issue with that. You don't. If your eyes is causing you to covet, you don't go to a car show so you can covet more material things. It's a matter of being drastic with your salvation, drastic with your walk with Yah. So this is what it means by removal. Remove yourself from those places. Remove yourself from those things which causes you to stumble. So likewise, if we are members of the body, and he uses this instance, if we are offending the whole body, then that member will be removed. That member will be removed. So what is the purpose of removing that member? Let's look at a few instances of the removal. Revelation chapter 3, verse 16 says, "So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spit you out of my mouth." So there's that removal. Because you're not indicating what you want to do, because you're not living what you profess and being honest, Yahuwah will remove you. Yahushua will remove you from his body. He will spit you out of his mouth. Why is this such an important thing to remove these things? 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6 to 8 gives us this principle. Go to mama. It says here, "Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Purge out, therefore, the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as you are unleavened. For even the Messiah, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, and with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." Here, one of the principles is that sin, or a person committing sin, can affect the others committing sin, affect the others who are not walking in sin. A little sin can affect the whole thing, the whole group. A little leaven can leaven the whole lump of bread. So a little sin can affect the whole group of believers. This is extremely important to understand, because even with that instance, when the body of Messiah has to remove a member because of their outward display of sin and no care at all of what Yah requires, we are not doing it because we hate. Principle number 1. We are doing it to preserve the righteousness of the rest of the body. So let's look at if this is the same intent that the Father has as well. Ezekiel 18 verse 23 says, "Have I any pleasure at all that the wicked should die, saith Yah? Not that he should return from his ways and live?" Ezekiel 33 verse 11, "Say unto them, As I live, saith Yah, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn from his way and live. Turn ye from your evil ways. For why will you die, O house of Israel?" So right here we have the understanding of Yah's will. Yah's will is not that anybody dies. So what is it that he has to accomplish? He has to preserve those who desire to walk in righteousness. He has to preserve his people. He has to preserve his glory from not being overshadowed in darkness. Let's look at a few more things. This is extremely important for us to grasp. Preservation is important in understanding why Yah defended his people so much in Scripture. When you look at the Scripture and the destruction that came on the enemies of Israel, it was not because Yah hated them or required or desired the death of them. It was because they were attacking Israel, and Israel had to be preserved. Why were many Israelites also destroyed? Because when they were attempting to overthrow Moses or overthrow the righteous, he had to preserve the righteous by removing those who were wicked. It wasn't because he desired to kill the wicked, as many preachers of this foolish message declares. They depict him as a tyrant, killing anybody who does not listen. And this is the most ridiculous description. If you're going to use Scripture, then use Scripture and explain it according to Scripture. Don't create your own method of explaining, which I hear the preacher of this message. There's many preachers over the years, but particularly there's another one that everybody is following, and he's emphasizing on the fact that that others who believe in this believe that he's a tyrant that just kills because he wills that people die. And to me, this is the most deceptive thing that you can do. That's what the deceiver does. That's what the accuser does. He accuses Yah of things that the Scripture doesn't even describe. He does. He accuses, and that's what the devil does. So we have to understand, what is it that he needs to do? John chapter 8 verse 44 says, You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and did not stay in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, because he is a liar and the father of it. If you notice, in order to preserve heaven, he had to cast the enemy out. He had to cast him out. So now, because he's on this earth, what happens? He sends his spirit into those who believe, and his spirit casts demons out, removes them. Removes them. Let's look at another verse. Matthew chapter 25, verse 40 and 41. It says, And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it to me. Then shall he say to them, on the left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. It is Yah that prepared this destruction for the devils and his angels, and it is Yah that would declare those who decide to hold on to their sin to depart from him and enter into that same punishment that Yah himself prepared for the enemy. So in order to understand this God doesn't kill doctrine, you would have to remove clear scripture indicating that Yah is the one executing this judgment, trying to attempt to preserve his people, his righteousness, his standard, his glory in this universe, actually. So we have to understand why Yah destroys. Saying God doesn't kill is the most unlogical thought at all. You know, people die in this world, and it's not always because of hatred. It's not always because of murder. There's many accidents that occur in this world. And in the first principle, we explain this. Preservation. Let me just use one more example before we close, because this doctrine is extremely silly, and I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but I just don't see why the understanding of what I'm saying and what the scripture is revealing is just not clear enough. It seems like it was clear for so long, and after listening to these preachers, especially many preachers with a huge platform, listening to them for a long period of time just distorts your thoughts. When you listen to a false teacher for a long period of time, it just distorts your thinking, and it starts to sound good. It starts to sound like it makes sense when it makes no sense at all. There's a disease. It's called I don't know if I'm saying it right. Gangrene, right? It's when your blood circulation is not getting to certain parts of your body, and when it starts to affect your hand or your fingers, if you do not cut it off or destroy it, you destroy it when you cut it off. If you do not cut it off, it will continue to grow and affect until it gets worse and worse. You may have to cut your hand off. You may have to cut your arm off. You have to cut it off before. You have to cut off the problem before it affects everything else. And this is an extremely important principle that's located in Scripture. Yah preserves his people. It's the reason why 8 people were the only ones available to survive or to live during the flood, because they were the only ones who desired to serve Yah, to follow after righteousness. If time was given longer, it probably would have been a different situation, because a little sin affects the whole lump. It didn't say affects some. It affects the whole lump. So you have to remove it. You have to remove it. And in the flood's case, he had to preserve the 8 that was standing in righteousness. Preservation is one of the very important motives as to why Yah destroyed the enemies of his people. So we cannot blame Yah for murder, because he's executing something not that he wants to do, but that he has to do in order to protect his children from individuals who do not desire to serve him. We have to use our minds, stretch our minds to understand what's written, and not change what is written to make us feel comfortable about who he is. You know, the God that there's a book called The God That We Always Wanted. Like, that is the most erroneous thing. Who cares about what you wanted? It is because of sin. What we want is deceiving to us. We have to go with what is needed. We have to go after what is needed, and him, Yah, and his word, his son, is what we need. The God that we always wanted. This is getting ridiculous, guys. Please take time to analyze the scriptures that was used. This doctrine is extremely destructive to scripture, and I don't want to see anybody polluted or deceived because of a lack of trust in what is written. This should not be so. So I hope that you grasp. Please send me any information if you have any other questions. This is dealing with a particular topic called the God Does Not Kill doctrine. So please just equip yourself in the scripture, and when you hear about it, you'll know how to express why destruction occurs from Yah. So be ready for part 3 of this particular study, understanding how Yah destroys, or how destruction comes from Yah. And then we're going to go into a few questions that's usually asked about this understanding. And I'll be answering certain questions that's usually not answered when these questions are posed in these presentations. When these presentations are made, there's these questions that stir up doubt in the individual's minds because there is a lack of understanding of scripture, and they're unable to answer these questions. So I'm going to answer a few of these questions after we do principle number 3 of how destruction comes from Yah. And I hope that this is clear, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at the Fourth Angels Learning Center. Shalom.